Oh, that was quicker than I expected. There was a very funny moment for me personally in the recent Grey Talons faction overview by Borderwise.
They hate you personally, and yes, that means you, James. Oh, I think that's like James. You watch out. The Pyre is coming for you.
Now, my name is in fact James, so I took this as a personal challenge, not from Borderwise, but from the Pyre. So I started sort of theory crafting ways to beat it. I'm aware of the ways that you beat frontsiders, piercing weapons and such. Swarms, if you're allowed to. Started thinking about what I would do, and then I thought maybe I'm overthinking this. So this is an old tournament craft of mine, which, to just sort of fluff myself real quick, did actually win the tournament it was entered in. This is the Hope You Like Squash, so named because it uses predominantly big old Hesh shells. Slow Hesh shells at that. It also has a substantial laser system. These are the only two turrets that were on the tournament version, but it is also added as a lambs all over the place. And all these little turrets, the ones with the white applique on them are just diff flak. This one, I think, is, well, between these two, one is a disruptor conduit shell, and the other is an 8-meter flak shell to supplement the diff flak. This worked pretty well in the tournament it was entered in. Like I said, it won, though it very much could have gone the other way. There were a couple other contestants that could definitely have beaten me, including the one that I went up against in the finals, but I digress. I thought, this is 1.2 million, it's, a couple 100,000 under the Pyre. I wonder how well this would do against it. So I tested it, and it lost. But it was a pretty close thing. And I tested it again, being held stationary by a tractor beam like this. Just put the Pyre over there so that it would. The main problem was it was just sort of turning away from it and getting shot in areas it wasn't designed to. And just front against broadside, it won, though only narrowly. So I figured maybe I can modify this and make it work to beat the Pyre. So I did. The changes are fairly minimal, actually. I made the laser turrets into these ugly, lumpy things so that they have elevation mantlets, because formerly they didn't. Put another one up front. I put AA mantlets on the turrets, because previously they were 1-meter elevation. And I beefed up the armor in a couple of places. Like, this was formerly metal, now it's heavy armor. Brought the cost up about 73, 74,000 materials, but still well under the cost of the Pyre. I was kind of expecting to have to do more to this. Oh, another thing, I added a secondary AI that prioritizes fast and close targets, and the lasers are on that so that they shoot down the nukes. I was expecting to have to do more, honestly, but it turns out this works pretty consistently. It won't beat the Pyre every single time, sometimes aim points being what they are, and the Pyre's AI being weirdly inconsistent for reasons I'm not really sure of. But I'm going to say this beats it about 9 out of 10 times, which I will now proceed to demonstrate. So, starting 2,500 meters apart, more or less the middle of the Neater map. Rules are Neater standard. Teams just squash spawns at 0, pointing at the enemy. Pyre spawns at 100 meters, pointing at the enemy. This does give the Pyre the advantage initially, since the squash has to turn in order to clear its guns from firing. But hey, if the goal is for me to beat the Pyre, then giving it advantages just means that if I win, I get bragging rights, right? Initially usually goes to the Pyre, because the squash, and sometimes that happens where it just cannot hit incoming nukes, and I haven't quite figured out why. Ah, here we go. Pyre has already lost 2 of its main APS turrets, and yeah, see when it side slips like this, a lot of the time the squash just does terrible, terrible things to it. In this case, it had already done it, so it's not as impactful, but one problem that the squash does struggle with is that it's very bad at turning. There's thrust vectoring on the main propellers, there are turning propellers in the front and the back, and the front and back up props actually have thrust vectoring to help with that as well, which was something that I added as part of the refit for this, but it's still not enough. It still turns very slow. Honestly, I could probably get better results if I just removed some of the propellers on the back of the squash to make it go slower. Still looking at effectively full firepower here. That barrel's still technically active. I don't know if it's actually firing. Oh, well, now it's probably not. You can see the Hesh just tears through this thing. Heavy armor wedge spam does not do well against Hesh. At least not big Hesh like this. It just... There's nothing to reduce the AP of the Hesh. There's no, like, depth to decrease its damage. And it just sprays frags everywhere that ruin all the things nearby. Looks like we lost another main turret here, and both of the dual-purpose Sea-Wiz turrets. Looking pretty good for the squash so far. Again, like, I don't know why... I don't know. Detection is weird sometimes. Sometimes it can see the nuke well, sometimes it cannot. I don't know. Were I to further refine this, oh, and down it goes. Yeah, I can't recover from that. Pretty quick victory for the squash, and a lot of firepower still remaining. This is not the most commanding victory that it's ever had. I've had it win at almost 96% with all of the main guns still alive, but it's pretty close to the best result. You can see the armor is quite thick and can take a lot of hits. Funnily enough, I've had nukes like get into the water and hit the side here, and the explosion does not get, it doesn't kill anything other than armor. Lag spike as the Pyre despawns. And there we go. So that's about how it goes. Like I said, it doesn't win every single time. Sometimes the Pyre just gets lucky and knocks out turrets fast, or the nukes get through. Sometimes the aim point on these turrets is just whack and doesn't end up killing stuff fast. The recording there, like I said, was actually a fairly strong showing from the squash. It's usually a bit more even than that, but I digress. There are definitely things that could be done to further refine it. The detection and tracking on the laser turrets for shooting down the nukes could do with some serious improvement. The flak is not unnecessary. It does help with the missiles, but it's could probably be better done for that purpose. It was designed to stop crams more so. Um, the turrets shooting themselves in the back is a much more common occurrence than I would care to admit. The original tournament version had manual failsafes in the breadboard that would disable firing when it was within a certain arc. I actually disconnected them because the Pyre would be like directly behind it and at an angle where, with the new AA mantlets, they would shoot over each other. But that, as it turns out, the local weapon controller failsafes are kind of garbage. I tried to use them, I really did, but I don't know. Sometimes the lasers zap stuff on it, which sets off its own smoke. The smoke isn't actually necessary against the Pyre because it doesn't trigger on the missile lasers, and all it does is hurt its own visual detection and its lasers. Um, the uh, armor scheme is thick and good against a fair number of things, but not specifically against the Pyre because it comes in from a higher angle. You can see it's just a lot of metal for the most part with some heavy armor, beam slopes here and there. There is also significantly more budget to go. Could use that to upgrade armor, upgrade the laser, add more active defenses. Loads of things could be done. It would do well to have more turning. I slapped in some additional turning propellers up front, which is why this looks even more awkward than it did in the original version. But it works well enough, and I wasn't really intending to make this into a properly good ship. I was just seeing if it could work, and it did, and hey, good enough. I will upload this ship to the workshop so people can take a look at it. Please don't use it as an indicator of my skill with the game. This is a ship that was hastily built in the first place, which is why it's ugly and just all black. And then it was hastily modified for use against the Pyre. I would rather that you use the Civil Republic Thunderstorm, which is also on my workshop, as a better example of my skill level with the game. It's much cooler and arguably better for its cost. But I digress. Hope this was informative, helpful, or at least entertaining. I know Borderwise has expressed great catharsis at seeing the Pyre die, so hopefully that at least will help some people.